Welcome back to the smoke session. Think about this. If we could go back and redo a moment, not a moment in your life, some dramatical thing, but just a simple moment. Said the wrong answer, take it back. Did the wrong move, take it back. Would you actually fix anything? Or would you just become a different version of the same problem? And that's the part that nobody talks about, but I want to talk about it. We all imagine the do-over. Everybody has. But I bet you we never stop and ask, who'd we be when we got there? That's what we're going to talk about this episode. So if you got it, spark it up. If not, you don't have to get high to listen to this podcast. That's not what it's about. Now, back to the subject. What if you had that ability to hit that respawn button anytime you crash and burn on anything? Or, okay, you know what? Maybe you don't even crash and burn. Maybe you just, that could have been better. Or didn't get the answer, the reaction you wanted, and you could just do it again. I believe most people don't want a whole new life. Most people just want a clean shot at an old moment. One sentence back, one reaction back, one choice back. Not to change everything, but just enough to see who we could have been if we got that one moment right. Everybody would want that. And you're lying if you say you don't. Now, would I want to do anything that changed my life dramatically? No, because I believe in the butterfly effect. I believe that if I change this thing, anything after making that change would be totally different. So I'm not going to risk the chance of rewriting my life to where the things that I value and love the most in it now are gone. I'm not. We all know if someone asks you if you wanted that ability, that respawn, that do-over, that instant, our answer would be immediately. And again, not something huge, not some massive implosion, something small. A sentence you'd say differently, a hesitation you'd fix, a moment you wish you handled better. And that's the thing about regret. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And once it starts whispering, your brain starts building alternate timelines, versions of you that handled it better. You said it cleaner, walked away sooner. And after a while, it doesn't even feel like imagination anymore. It feels like evidence. Like there really was a version of you that got it right. And somehow you just missed it. And that's where this gets tricky. Because now you're not just thinking about the moment anymore. You're thinking about yourself, who you were, how you showed up, what you didn't do, what you should have done. And without even realizing it, the question quietly shifts from what would I change to why wasn't I better when it mattered? And that is where this whole idea really starts. Because here's what I think the real question is, hiding underneath it all. Are you upset about what happened in that moment? Or are you upset about who you were when that moment happened? Because those are not the same thing. We don't just regret moments. We regret versions of ourselves within those moments. The insecure version, the reactive version, the one who didn't know yet, the one who let ego talk first, the one who stayed quiet when they should have spoken up. The do-over fantasy isn't really about fixing the moment. It's about disowning that version of ourselves within that moment. But still, make no mistake, that was us. That was you. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. I've got moments like that. I've replayed more times than I care to admit. Not because they ruined anything, but because they showed me something in myself I didn't really like. Whether it was how quick I react instead of listening, how defensive I got, how I shut down instead of leaning in. And the hardest part wasn't the outcome. Absolutely not. It was realizing that version of me was real. And that at that moment was my representation. And I couldn't pretend it wasn't. I had to live in that. You see, that's where the do-over fantasy really starts to burn. Not because we want to fix the world, but because we want to fix how we see ourselves in the world. Most moments we redo aren't going to be dramatic. They're ordinary. You ever rewrite a text 10, 15 times and finally send it? And the second it goes through, you think to yourself, shit, that wasn't it. But nothing explodes. Nobody storms out. Nobody gets mad. But something shifts. And now your brain won't let it go. Maybe I should have softened that line. Maybe I shouldn't have added that last sentence. Maybe I shouldn't have sent it at all. It's small, but it sticks. Because in that moment, you didn't feel like your best self. And that's what we really want to redo. If we're being honest, that's what we want to take the do-over on. It's not the event. It's the version of ourselves. And that's why this idea hooks us so hard. Because the do-over button whispers control. If I had just. That phrase right there is addictive. If I had just tried harder. If I had just spoken up. If I had just left sooner. If I had just chosen differently. It makes life feel fixable. Like it's just a miscalculation. Something you can correct if you just run it back a few times. You see, but what we forget is life isn't a formula. You can say the right thing at the right time and still be misunderstood. You can make the smart move, the bold decision, and still lose. You can love someone deeply and still not be right for each other. Understand, control was never absolute. And that's the part that messes with us. Because if it wasn't fully in our control, then maybe it wasn't fully preventable either. And that's harder to accept than just blaming yourself. You see, regret feels productive, like you're reviewing tape, like you're learning something, but it's safe learning. You're narrating from a distance. Real growth requires stepping back into risk and risking another imperfect move. You see, it's easier to replay the loss than to step back onto the fucking field. And somewhere in your head, in our head, there's a version of you, of us, that nailed it. We said the right thing, made the better choice, handled it perfectly. We look calm, confident, and certain. But understand, they're edited. That version doesn't include our future mistakes, our blind spots, our late night spirals. Every timeline has friction, and every version of us will struggle. You're not comparing reality to reality. You're comparing reality to imagination. And if you haven't learned by now, imagination always wins because imagination doesn't show the bloopers. That's why we're so drawn to the idea of do-overs, because it feels like control. But here's the part we don't think about. If we could do over every mistake, big or small, you'd also undo everything that came from it. That's what we call a plot twist. You'd undo the awareness, the boundaries, the growth. You don't get to delete the pain and keep the lesson. It's a package deal. So if you erase the moment, what else disappears with it? That's where the fantasy breaks. That's where that idea of respawning, of having that do-over button, having that second chance loses its merit. Because what we really want is outcome without consequences. And we all know life doesn't work like that. For every action, there's a reaction, good or bad. The real danger of the do-over mindset is thinking the answer lives in the past. That's like driving forward while staring in the fucking rearview mirror. Eventually, you're going to crash. You see, when you stay stuck in the if-only mode, you stop moving. You stop moving and start believing happiness exists in some alternate timeline. Like there was a version of you that would have gotten everything right. But that version doesn't, nor will ever exist. Life doesn't hand you one perfect path. It hands you options. You choose, then you build. And that becomes your direction. Not destiny, direction. And direction can change. It can shift, evolve. Time only moves forward. There's no drafts. There's no undo. We can reinterpret the past, but we can never, ever relive it. And yeah, that feels heavy because it means some things are final. A journey ends. We all know that. We all know that's the final outcome. That's what makes things real. If nothing stuck, nothing would matter. Mistakes matter because they stay. Growth matters because it costs something. Love even matters because it isn't resettable. There's also the different type of regret. It's the quiet one. A call you meant to make, a person you meant to check in on, the apology you kept putting off. We put these things off, and then one day, you don't get another chance. And there was no explosion or implosion, no dramatic ending, just time, just distance, just life moving forward, whether you're ready for it or not. That's when it stops being philosophical and it gets personal. We realize something very simple. As much as we wish we had the power of a do-over, of a respawn, of a one more chance anytime I want it, some things don't need a redo. They just needed our presence while they were fucking happening. So what is the real cheat code? Because I know it's not going back. It's not fixing the past. You know what? Maybe it's how we show up next. I mean, we can't unsay what we said, but you can decide what you say next. Most do-overs aren't dramatic. I've already said it. They're quiet. Taking a breath before reacting, listening instead of defending, letting something go instead of needing to win. That's hard to do. It's small shifts, but they compound. That's the real power. It's not erasing our mistakes. It's integrating them, learning from them, letting them refine you instead of define you, if that makes sense. So I'll pose the question again. If you could hit a do-over button, would you? Or would you keep the lessons and just move differently now? Because the game doesn't reset when we mess up. We all know that. If you're being honest with yourself, we all know this. The game doesn't reset when we screw up. It resets every time we decide to play differently. That's the magic. Play the game differently. This is where we're going to be lighting up the bigger questions. The cheat code, the paradox, the weird human stuff, we're all just trying to figure out in real time. And next time, I want to talk about something that sits right next to regret. The need to be seen and what happens when our worth starts depending on it. But until we light up again, stay curious, stay lifted, stay third eye high.